I sobbed the night of my 13th birthday because stepping through the doorway into my teens felt like I was already too late. I felt I should have had more to show for, a suitcase of things rather than shallow pockets, but when I turned to scramble for whatever I could, the door I'd come through was gone. So I sobbed. I mourned over my birthday cake and asked the candles if they knew a way to travel back in time so I could finish my first novel or something. It's like 13 meant my life was already nearing its close, while everyone else had all the time in the world. I've felt that way ever since. My teens were the Tsubame, still a bullet train, but not the fastest you could board, and now edging closer to the tail end of my 20s, that same fear doesn't crawl out through the tear ducts anymore. It just sits, festering in amongst stomach acid, fizzing, reminding me what day of the week it is, and in which month, and which year, and in which decade of life I'm in. I reckon I could climb to every mountain peak in the world and still feel like all I've done is sit on my ass all my life. But I've regained my hearing recently. Not in a literal sense. In a literal sense, I feel like I've heard too much. In a metaphorical, metaphysical, whimsical sort of way, I've opened my ears to the concept of optimistic aging. No, celebratory aging. No, perhaps realistic aging. We'll come back around to that. We might stumble upon something more suitable. If I don't come to it by the end of this, maybe you can tell me. Forgive me, this is going to be a disaster. I've started hearing the women who've come before me. Oh, how I adore them. When Patti Smith said, "I believe I am still the same person. No amount of change in the world can change that. I believe in movement." I heard it. Because until my mid to late 20s, I was kneeling with bound fists at the altar of this subconscious belief that growing older would mean letting go of myself. And I don't mean the superficial self, I mean the soul. The light that emanates from my eyes even in the darkest of rooms. This subconscious fear of losing my soul nourished a greater conscious fear of getting older, of eventual death. I must have been 10 or so when my friends dragged me onto a teacup ride at the school fair. I knew spinning wasn't really my thing, but I went anyway, figuring I'd be fine, and I was at first. But as the ride continued, my friends began turning the wheel in the middle more, and the more they turned it, the easier it got to keep turning, and the more it kept turning, the faster we spun. We spun so fast. Stupid fucking laws of physics. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping it'd calm my stomach, but the force of motion intensified. I begged them to stop, but even if they let go of the wheel, there was no stopping until the ride was over. Then there came the grim aftermath. And that's why getting dizzy drunk feels infinitely more nauseating to me as an adult. My point is, how I felt that day at the fair is how I felt ever since that fateful birthday. My life is that teacup, and I've lost all control of the wheel. And if I am damned to a life of motion sickness, I'd want to hope I at least get to keep my soul by the end of it. Lucky for me, I now believe that nothing can strip us of our souls. In fact, I feel this soul has been with me for a very, very, very long time. I am not this body. I am the energy that resides in it. Understanding that was like dropping my shoulders for the first time. It makes everything else seem so trivial when the shoulders are sitting pretty in their sockets. I don't like talking to people around my age about aging, not for the most part. Because most people around my age are still hanging on to these anchorless threads, these promises of decade-based improvements. 20s are supposed to be hell, 30s are supposed to be the years you figure it out and get all flirty and fun. 40s are apparently your years of confidence and total embodiment, and the list just goes on. What shall we call it? The Book of Decades? A one-size-fits-all sweater made for humans that only seems to fit a chihuahua? As it turns out, the thing has 2 extra armholes perfect for back legs. It's a dog sweater. This notion of holding out for a better decade is a fucking dog sweater. Forget it, we'll put a darning needle in that one. All I know is we're taken with this idea of understanding all there is to understand about a life that's beyond all understanding. We tether ourselves to objects and warped ideologies and ignore people in person that we follow online. And why do these eye-watering sums of money exist when they're just being used to either buy violence or a Birkin? And why is it so permissible for people to flush their morals down the toilet? And why does that make their asses more kissable? There are certain things I'll never understand about the way particular groups of our species operate. In fact, there are plenty of things I'll never understand about this planet as a whole, this universe. I'll always understand, though, pure energy. I can tell I understand because I've surrendered to the idea that I don't have to understand. Do you understand? I feel it when I'm hugging a tree. You should do that sometime. There's nothing quite like hugging a tree, especially a really old one. Of course, here in Australia, you have to first check for huntsman spiders, but once you know you're in the clear, it's a beautiful experience. I actually had to let go of my fear of death when I started hugging trees more regularly, because if by chance a huntsman crawled onto me during that embrace, I would surely pass away on the spot. It's both a terrible and a wonderful way to go out, rooted in the same kind of polarity we see in nature. I won't be manifesting it though. That's a note for spirit. I know you like to play games and I'll be having none of it. Thank you. So anyway, about these decades, I don't know what my 30s are going to look like, or my 40s, or my 70s, or my 80s, or whatever stage I get to before peacing out. But I do know that however much fun I have or don't have in the present is up to me. I'm privileged. I've been blessed with love and joy and struggle, light and dark and muddy, all of it. I've lived in a couple of cities around Australia. I've chosen to pay rent over groceries and danced in the kitchen while experimenting with scraps in the pantry to get by until next payday. I've sung at the top of my lungs with a man I love while delivering food to people to make the last of the bills for the month. And I've experienced months of financial abundance. The first time I flew to the other side of the world was alone, and I got to experience a city I'd only dreamt, read, and watched movies about: New York City. I got spine surgery when I was 15, and my body has hated me for it ever since. But I get to walk, run, do yoga, dance, hell, even spin, but not for too long. My life has been filled to the brim with polarity, and I expect this is what life is. I don't believe I'll wake up one day in my 40s and have it all figured out. I think I'll always be some version of a hot mess, drinking a glass of wine, rolling a blunt, and painting in the garage while my car sits outside. And how fucking marvelous is that? I've got at least one ring for each finger on my right hand, and I'm slowly building out the left, and lately I've had visions of my hands well into the future, wrinkled, rich with wisdom and experience, but never without a hint of naivety. I hope to remain somewhat naive. It keeps me curious, and as long as I'm curious, I'm alive. Alive in the kind of way that's eternally ageless. Alive in a way that will carry on long after I'm gone. There it is. Ageless aging.